Welcome to the Accounting for Innovation podcast, where we explore cutting edge strategies and insights into the worlds of accounting and finance. Presented by Decimal and the Radical CPA, each episode dives deep into industry trends. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a budding entrepreneur, join us as we unpack key concepts and share practical tips to drive success. Integrating AI and AI in everyday life. So today I'm pretty excited because we're going to be talking about everyday uses of AI and how firm owners are doing things with AI every day and what that looks like in your firm, how it should be impacting your everyday jobs. And it's not just accounting, right? Like we're going to be talking about things beyond accounting and how you can use these tools to really increase efficiency in your firm, kind of change up efficiency, make yourself, I would say, a lot more customer service friendly and really reduce time. I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing that AI brings to us in our everyday life, even if we're not quite ready yet to, use it from a financial standpoint. But what are some of the tools that you can use every day in your firm? And so, Matt, what are you thinking about when you think about AI every day?
I kind of bucket what we all do into a few different places. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's definitely AI in general accounting work. Hey, we get into the numbers, we get into the books, we get into the advising, whatever it is. There's that, but there's also communications and there's also research. And to me, when you talk about communications, sales, marketing, research, that's where AI can really have an immediate impact. And I think you said it really well when you started talking about AI as being a time saver, because I think it is that. I also think it's an idea generator. One of the hardest things to do is get off of go in some things. I was talking to an accounting firm owner the other day, small firm. He's like, I wanted to get into the habit of writing a blog every 2 weeks, but I sit there for hours thinking about what to do. And I was like, hey, let's pop it up, put it into Chat GPT. Let's come up with an idea for a blog. And within minutes, he had something. What ended up posting looked nothing like what Chat GPT did, but it got the momentum going and it got him off of go. And so I think AI as a time saver in content and writing, things that traditionally accountants aren't necessarily the best at, is a really good starting point. What do you think, Jody?
Yeah, so I think it's good from an idea perspective, right? Like if you're needing clarity for things, right? Like, so a lot of times the way I use ChatGPT is I'll have like things spinning in my head, which things spin all the time, but I will start to put them into prompts and I will give context around them. So like
Right.
the way to use ChatGPT is and the best way is to talk to it. It's just like it's a friend, right?
Yeah.
Like just don't think of it as prompts. Think of it as like I'm talking to the person sitting next to you and I'm giving it all the instructions and all the detail around the instructions. And if you just kind of talk to it that way, you're going to get really good answers. So anyway, so I talk to it like it's a friend and like I ask it for clarity around like things that I've been like kind of I don't even want to say struggling with, but just thinking about. And what happens is it seems to organize things in my head.
Yeah.
Well, it's not in my head, but it's organizing things on paper that I necessarily couldn't get organized in my head without maybe taking, another 2 days to do or like kind
Right.
of really like sitting down and thinking about it. Whereas I can use ChatGPT to really bring clarity into my thoughts and kind of put them in like a more organized way than my thoughts. So maybe that's just
Right.
my brain, but that's the way I see it as being really like an amazing help for me.
Yeah, and I look, one thing I did just the other day was we needed to come up with a graphic for a new kind of column and blog that we're doing. And I put into Chat GPT some general thoughts around it. And it came up with something that was fine. It was okay. It was a little messy. And I gave it some more prompts. I said, let's make it clear. Let's make it black and white. And let's make it with this title. And all of a sudden it did it. And 4 or 5 more prompts later, it got to exactly what I needed it to be. And I think that's where when you say talk to it, it's also criticize and help it. Think of it like that intern that works for you that comes up with the first work product and you want to be really nice to the intern, and you're like, okay, when you came up with this, let's try this, try tweaking that, try changing this. What do you think about that? And if you treat it in that way, it can come up with really good work product for you in a way that's exceptionally beneficial. And I think that's just from a content. Like, one of the things you and I've talked a lot about is how hard it is for a lot of people that run their own accounting firm or that are doing business development to actually get out there and to do the things they need to do to generate business. And part of that can be just creating content. And a good way to do that for content is to use ChatGPT as a starting point and or something like it. There are a million other things out there like
Right.
ChatGPT, but I use that as kind of a catch-all that everybody knows. It's like Google search. You could also search on other places.
Right. Well, and too, like when you're writing emails, right? There are so many other tools too that are starting to pop up right in the tools you're using, right? And
100%.
they have the AI like built right in. And it's funny because for some of them, I'm a little bit like, I don't want to say nervous, but it's like, ooh, do I actually want to put something in there, right? Like, is it because like you're in a SaaS tool and the next day, like it changes, right? And you're like, ooh,
Yeah,
like, should I press this button or not? I think a
right.
lot of accountants have this feeling like the whole thing's gonna blow up. But that's what I found too. Like in Notion, I don't know if anyone's used to using
Oh,
Notion,
yeah.
but Notion is basically, it's like an organizer or a day timer on steroids, and I mean, I know it's more than that, but that's the way I use it as, and, like, you can put in a graph, you can tell it how you want to organize, like, an organizational chart, and it will come up with the prettiest, like, boxes and um organization and flow charts and everything, and you don't have to like sit there and move the box here and then draw the arrow. You just say, hey, this is the relationship between this entity and that entity, and this is what they're going to do, and this is how it's all going to come together, and they build this beautiful flow chart for you that prior I would have probably spent, I don't know, 4 hours and
Right.
some boxes and, like, trying to get the arrows right, especially for people who are a little bit less PowerPoint friendly, or do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's, like, amazing that you don't necessarily need a person who's a PowerPoint expert now to build you
Yeah.
something. You can do it right in a tool that's, like, you're already using.
Well, and I think talking about AI already being built into tools. Number one, in my email, we use Front, but Google and Microsoft also have a version. I'll sometimes get done putting the kids to bed at night, and I'm like, I got 10 emails I just need to reply to. I will immediately hit AI reply to all 10, and it creates the email for me. I'll edit it almost every time. It likes exclamation points more than I do. Yeah, but it's a good starting point, and it cuts my time down by 2/3. And so I'm able to get away from my computer a lot quicker because AI starts the prompt on these emails because it reads a whole string, it contextualizes, it listens to me, it picks up my tone. But I also think there are in accounting, tools like Carbon are also adding AI into their workflow system. A really cool one I was just talking about the other day was, of all places, Spark from RightWorks is a really good research tool within RightWorks platform. And you don't typically think of RightWorks that hosts QuickBooks Desktop and does all this stuff as ahead in AI, but they've really built a great tool. And there are other companies that are out there that are doing it that make using the tools that already exist easier.
Right. And I think the interesting thing about it is if you, and I know like this is accounting for innovation, so we have a very progressive listener base. But I know that there are firms out there who have banned AI in their firms, right? So I can
Really?
date myself, but that was kind of the way the internet was banned in firms when it first came out. Like you weren't allowed to use the web, right? And so there are firms that have said, no, you're not allowed to use AI in the firm because they're very concerned about privacy. And again, I understand those concerns, but if you're not allowing your employees to use it, I guarantee they're using it on their phones anyways.
Oh,
So
100%.
don't think that just because you as the firm owner is not comfortable with it or is not used to it or hasn't created a policy around what's acceptable use and what's not acceptable use of it, that your employees aren't using it themselves because they're figuring out how it's saving time to do their jobs faster. So I think that's a really important thing to think about.
QuickBooks Online and Microsoft 365 are essential tools for modern businesses. But what happens if your data is lost or compromised? SysCloud, a proud sponsor of the Accounting for Innovation podcast, provides advanced backup and recovery services, as well as ransomware protection and anomaly detection, ensuring your business can continue operating even in the face of disaster. SysCloud, peace of mind for your business's critical data. Visit syscloud.com to learn more. That's syscloud.com. And now, back to the show.
You mentioned customer, let's call it client success, customer service earlier. And there's something that we started doing that I think this is also impacting. By the way, I think it's extremely short-sighted and sad that firms ban AI. Like you said, it's like banning the internet. That didn't work out well for them, and it's not going to work out well
Well,
on the AI
it
side.
but it did happen. I mean, like, just
Oh, I
it's
agree.
just like the evolution of technology, right?
I agree, and rules always evolve after
Right.
technology, and you should be concerned about security. You should be concerned about privacy and safety and all of that stuff. So I'm not saying that, but I think that there are other ways that you can start to use things, and to do it carefully and cautiously. One of the things that we started doing that I think is really impactful is we use Chorus to record calls. And there are lots of other tools. There's Gong, there's Fathom, there are a million of them out there. I've been on calls with 5 or 6
Fireflies.
people, and
Yeah,
Firefly is
Firefly.
another great one, and you'll have, like, 8 different note takers join. What you can do with these note takers right now is they are all integrating AI in to listen to the call and to pull out the important points post-call. And what we've been training our staff to do is after a client call, copy and paste that into an email, edit it, make sure it's correct, send it within 15 minutes after the call. You are doing something that you haven't been able to do. You're sending a quick synopsis, to dos for both sides, and it's a great and. It takes almost no time to do, and you're providing a lot more to your client in terms of just helping show that you care and understand.
The other thing about those note takers, which I find fascinating, is when I like kind of always get caught in a lot of the detail, right? Because like
Yeah.
I follow the detail, and when you see what the
Rabbit hole.
AI comes back to as being the main point, it's kind of like, well, that wasn't what I took away.
Right.
And so it's interesting to me how the AI filters through a lot of the stuff that we don't always filter through, that we kind of get sidetracked by. And so it's been interesting to me to kind of align with what the AI thought was important versus what I thought was important, and make me sometimes think, well, gee, is what I like focused on
Right.
really what I should have been focusing on? And it's not always correct, but I think it's an interesting perspective from a self-awareness as to like when you come out of a meeting to see what it thought was important versus what you thought was important. So I'm learning from the AI a
Oh,
lot.
yeah.
Like I see it teaching me things, which I think is amazing from a curiosity standpoint and a learning standpoint as to how I see the AI actually evolving me a lot better. And the other thing that is pretty cool is in ChatGPT, you can ask it um like personality things about yourself. So you can say,
Right.
based on the conversations we've had, what do you think are my strengths? What do you think are my weaknesses? And then it comes back and you're like, wow. And it's pretty smart too. Like I was
Oh,
like,
big time.
it's like one of those personality tests. And you're like, wait, how did it know so much about me? But if you're talking to it all the time, and it doesn't hold back, it tells you
Oh, no.
exactly what it's thinking. So I think those have been like really interesting things for me to see and learn from, AI and these conversations that I've been having with the AI.
I think it's interesting is there are so many different ways that we're just now seeing AI come to light and really be able to help us. And a lot of times I'm very focused on the client success, sales, marketing, bookkeeping side, but Jody, you've got a lot more insight into a more traditional accounting market, whether it's audits or tax or whatever. What are some of the other places that you're seeing or see that AI could have an impact soon?
Well, I think if you think about it from a tax perspective, like the OCR, what we call OCR,
Yep.
which was basically, you would scan a document and then it would take all that information and it would place it somewhere. That when it's enhanced by AI, because I don't think it's all AI, I think there's OCR and AI compared to it. Like the ability for the tools to read documents now are getting almost near perfect, which is
100%.
like amazing. So when you think about tax prep or anything else that or invoices or anything else that needs data being read into something, now it can isolate data a lot better. So let's say you read an invoice, it could pick up everything that's on that invoice instead of just like address being like, 3 lines and that's the address. Now it like picks up the number of the address and it picks up the street and it picks up,
Right.
the avenue or
Everything.
whatever, right? It's able to like break up the data a lot better, right? And so what happens is when it can break up that data and can read it, now all of a sudden your database becomes 10x more powerful because everything is its own piece of data as opposed to, a chunk of data, right? So when you see these new tools, and I get to see a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and but when you see how these new tools are being built, and you see the ability of them to manipulate the data because of the AI and where it's coming, that's the stuff that gets me excited, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's not every day yet, right? Like that's kind of future. When I think about every day, like I love Blue Jay. I'm an advisor to them, so I take that disclosure for what it's worth. But like Ask Blue Jay is tax research on steroids, right? Like you can ask it a question and it gives you all the tax it gives you not just an answer, but it gives you all the documentation, all the regs, all the court cases, everything and supporting documentation behind it.
Yeah.
So you can go double check it and you can go figure out if it's right or wrong and you have substantiation for it. And in the old days, and again, this will date me, right? We learned how to do tax research like, well, similar to the way you learned how to do research and legal
Yeah.
research, Matt, like
100%.
in the books and reading,
Boy,
like
was that
having
fun.
to do legal research, right? And then like Google came around and Google really didn't teach legal research the way that it was taught the way we were. And like a lot of people learned, I'll say half tax research, right? Because they didn't really learn the full way of going to grab all the sites and all the citations and the source docs and everything else, right? And now we're back to like it where now you can actually go back and you can read all those cases and you can really like think through it. Now for every tax situation you don't necessarily need all that, but for a lot of them it gives you a lot more opportunity to spend the time not being so worried about did I find everything, but actually, reading the cases and seeing how does it apply. So like when you look at research from that perspective, I mean it's amazing.
I think it is. And look, because we've covered a lot of topics. And, for a lot of accountants, for a lot of firm owners, it's a lot of information. And you and I are barely scratching the surface here. We're kind of giving the synopsis of the synopsis on what is available, what is coming, what you can do, any of that. If I'm somebody listening, if I'm an accountant, I'm a firm owner, I'm somebody who's interested, what are some of the best ways to really keep track of the advancements in AI and how I can start to implement them into my daily life?
Well, I think it starts with just being aware that it's out there and like just looking because like all the vendors now are like marketing it, right? So like you can see something that they're marketing, right? But I also think like definitely sign up for a chat GPT or for something similar to that, a tool similar to that, and pay the 20 bucks or whatever it is a month. Don't go with the free version. It's worth the $20. You
$20.
can, yeah, you can also get it inside of Microsoft. I think Copilot's an extra 20 bucks or something. Google's got it. I like they all have like the add-on. So get one of them and just start experimenting and take a breath when it comes up in the news screen and it says, "Hey, would you like to use AI?" and try it, it's not going to blow up your machine. I know like that was kind of the fear that I had, but like just start putting things in it and start talking to it because that's the only way you're going to learn it. It's not like people are having courses where like you like here it is and then go do it. But you could actually even ask the AI to teach you how to do it, right? If that's what you wanted to do. But just talk to it like it's your friend and see what it starts spitting back out and then realize that like you have to learn how to have conversations with it. But the more you use it, the easier it becomes. It's not hard. It's just something you have to learn how to have a conversation with. And it's the Alexa you always wanted, right? Like we were so disappointed in Alexa when she first came out. And now like she's okay, but she's still like pretty lacking. But like ChatGPT really can have a conversation back with you.
ChatGPT has conversations with my children all the time. One of the things as we wrap this up that stands out to me, I used to never read product update emails from the products that I was using, whether it's Front or Salesforce or Gmail or whatever. Skim those from now on. Skim those for AI updates because you'll start to learn where they're integrating AI, and it's worth the time not to spam them now because they're coming out with things that can be really usable for you. And number two is just start passively listening on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever you consume. You'll find a lot of people like Jody and I who are talking about AI and AI in accounting. And so I think learning is the new role that if you want to start integrating AI in, it's time to start learning. And as Jody said, doing. So with that, Jody, I think we've had a great conversation about how to integrate AI into daily lives. And I'm excited to see where this goes over the next few years.